Okay. Well, we're going to move on, and we'll see what we can find. I've got a beautiful question from Rain, and I'll just start that question. Rain is 15, and thank you for coming, Rain. It's so great to have so many young people watching. It really does make our hearts sing here on Safari Wild. Rain, your question is, what can kids do to help in conservation? Wow. Whew, Rain, I'm probably going to have to come across, I think you might be in the United States, Rain, and I think we've actually had a question from you before as well. I'd love to sit down with you, Rain, for a couple of hours and talk about that, but just in a nutshell, in a really, really quick, or not quick answer, but an answer that I don't bang on and carry on for too long. You can do so much, Rain. I like to also talk about local, global, local. We live in a time now we've got amazing opportunity to look at other parts of the world. Right now with us live on Safari Live, you are watching another part of the world. You're learning about another part of the world. But it's incredibly important to learn about your own backyard. And when I say backyard, I mean your habitats and your local area and what conservation areas that you can help with there. That's super important, and what that is what we call a tangible help or a tangible project for you. Because sometimes if you think, oh, I want to help rhinoceros, I want to help chimpanzees, I want to help snow leopards or something like that, which are all very, very important things as well, you might not feel immediately that you're making an impact. I still say carry on and help with those things. It's really, really important as well. But also your own backyard, your own local habitat. Look about, see if there's wildlife groups or charities in your area that you can help with, that you could go out and assist with. You might be able to go out with mum and dad on a weekend and maybe do some conservation management work, or helping with a habitat, helping reclaim some habitat back, cleaning up some habitat, getting rubbish out of it, replanting trees or something like that. Have a look around your local area, and that way you're starting somewhere and you're making a huge impact that you can actually see happening. And then also think globally, think locally, think globally, think locally. So Rain, fantastic question. I hope that helps you, buddy. And we've got an absolute plethora, an absolute smorgasbord, a buffet of things we can do these days with the internet. So that's probably my best answer for you, Rain. Great to have you on board, buddy. Thank you, Mr. Hippo. Fantastic to have you, and I hope you get better. And we'll just go past you gently, my boy. I hope those oxpeckers don't annoy you too much today. Really great. Take care, my boy. I love hippo. So I might actually just do a little turn around. That's probably the best thing, Andrew. We'll just go down and around across the dam wall and up to another water point behind the lodge. Just while we're going across, Andrew's going to pan the camera around. We've got a lovely herd of bachelor herd of impala across there, and I'll go quite slowly past our hippo friend again. I've got impala across there. I'll just stop for a second for you so you can get a nice shot. It's not too bumpy. Impala, there's a Nyala bull as well, which is the darker animal Andrew's got in the middle of the screen at the moment. They're just having a little graze. There's not a lot of feed around in that area, or there used to be. That was full of water when I was here last. Got a question from Mark in Chicago. Mark, great to have you with us, buddy. Mark, your question is, how long will it take these water holes, these dams, to fill up again? Well, it's a bit of one of those open-ended questions. If we got about a week's solid rain, which can happen in the wet season, which is the summer, you know, we'd definitely get a nice water level in here. But Mark, it really does depend. We need a good solid couple of weeks rain to put some substantial water in there, and then we need to have water there after, because then the bottoms of the dams and the water points will start to the soil gets to what's something called its water holding capacity, which means capacity is sort of up there again. You'll start to get a water level that'll start to rise. So Really looking forward to the rain for all these animals. The vegetation, and just to get things back on track. It is a slight, oh sorry, hold on guys. When I say worrying, it's just, I can see so many animals really needing it, and the ground, the land needs it. We need the rain, we really do. We really need the rain. Thank you for asking your question, mate. Great to have you on board. So guys, just going down to this little dip here, we might lose a bit of signal, but I'm going to carry on up here and see up at another water point. We'll come back to you. We're going to link over to the guys on bushwalk and see where.
Welcome back to the bushwalk. We have decided to just set off on foot. We're not on the trail or a fresh trail of any given animal, but because the clock is ticking, we thought we'd rather just start by getting off on foot in an area where we are hoping we're going to get lucky. This is the general area where Karula, a female leopard, was moving yesterday, or at least her tracks were, and by us being on foot it just increases our chances of finding her, because we get moving through areas where the vehicles cannot search, and we also available to listen to any updates that Mother Nature may give us, like impala alarm calling or monkeys alarm calling, squirrels alarming. Any kind of alarm calls in this general area we'd be much more likely to hear whilst on foot as opposed to in the vehicle. We've got Jeffrey and Bright, they're just up ahead crisscrossing through this area, and we keep in touch by doing short whistles. And they'll just give me a reply shortly. You may not be able to hear, and that way we don't go too far from one another, and also don't let the animals move off or get scared. Immediately now, Jeffrey and Bart are responding to that whistle, thinking that I've maybe found something interesting. And that's another thing that we'll do when we are tracking, is that we'll split up, and whoever does find the most recent track will whistle. Then you come back, reunite at that point of the last track, and then start searching for the next track. To follow each individual footprint would be impossible because the ground is simply too hard. Sorry guys, false alarm. Nothing to see, but it's a good example of how we've been working over the last few days, and they've just appeared. You've been tracking for now?
1.5 years.
So here in the Sabi Sands?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I guess like guiding Zubair, it doesn't.
Yes.
So that's a very in-depth tracking course. I did a 6-month field guide training course, but that's just to get you into the system, you could say. And obviously as time goes by you start acquiring a lot more skills and knowledge. But what I can assure you is that even though Jeffrey's just done a 1-year training course, he's got an incredible eye for tracking and an incredible passion, and that's what's made him such a good tracker, at least what we've seen of his skills and his potential so far. Bright, you've been tracking for a little bit longer than that now?
Yes.
How many years?
2 years.
2 years. And again, just an example of how not hugely experienced, but because they've done such good training courses at a lodge nearby, they are really ahead of their game, and we've all been incredibly impressed with their ability and their skill in tracking. But like I'm sure you guys will admit that the older guys, the trackers that you guys have learned from and who have taught you are more experienced, and in time you will gain that same experience, and that will be very useful.
Yes, yes, and it took something like when they told us 30 years to become their master trainer.
30 years?
30 years.
Okay, well there we go. That's what their mentors and trainers told them. It's taken them about 30 years to achieve Master Tracker qualification, which is the highest acknowledged qualification you can get as a tracker in South Africa. And I think, how many Master Trackers are there in South Africa now? Maybe less than two or three. Yeah, so not many, and that gives you an idea of how tricky it is to become a master tracker, but I'm sure these two are well on their way to achieving that in the future. Let's carry on and prove to everyone that we are on the way to becoming master trackers. It's been so much fun working with them. Yesterday they followed tracks of Karula, and in all likelihood Karula, and they managed to follow her trail all the way to where she made a baby impala kill, and all that was left of that baby impala was one leg with a little hoof and the tail and a bit of fur. So that was an awesome thing to see, and not only understand where Karula's moving, but just be able to sit there and understand that she would have fed on this baby impala for a couple of hours in a certain area before moving off. The tricky thing is where she moved off to we couldn't find, but we could get lucky this morning. Another thing I'd like to show you, well, I can just take a second here, is where, well, two things actually. I took a shortcut while we were looking around the Buffelshoek waterhole, and that's what happened to me. The top crust looks very hard, but below it it's soft, and I just sunk into the mud, which wasn't very fun, and now I'm dealing with that problem. But what I'd like to show you is the ground. Even though it looks very sandy here, if I push as hard as I can, you can see there's hardly any depression. If I stamp my foot down, it hardly leaves a track. I mean, you can see that a footprint is here, but that's after really slamming my foot down. So if an animal's just walking along here gently, it's very difficult to see any tracks. So that's what we're up against at the moment, and that's typical of this time of the year, the summer months, when the ground is a lot harder. In winter, once there's been a lot less moisture and once all the ground has been churned up by many hooves, it becomes very powdery and a fine dust, and it becomes a lot easier to see the tracks. So that's my excuse on behalf of the tracking team this morning. I really love watching how they move through the bush. They're like silent warriors, and it might actually be worth stopping here for a second and just watching how meticulously they go about looking for tracks. There's Mr. Bright, very focused on the task at hand, and they camouflage very well into the bush. They fit in here so well. Poor old Bright yesterday said he had a very close run-in with some white rhino whilst on the trail of Karula. He was so focused on the tracks, and this was at about 3:30, very hot in the afternoon, and he stumbled upon a few white rhino who came huffing and puffing past him. But I hope you guys are enjoying this kind of different little adventure that we decided to take you on this morning, because we haven't really found the time to do it yet. Sadly, we're not on the trail of an animal. It would be really exciting if we are, but maybe in the coming drives we'll be able to get you on a trail of a lion or a leopard, and we'll get to see Bright and Jeffrey hard at work. One of the wonderful things about the safari industry is that it is keeping this art and science of tracking alive, because the need for kind of herd boys to, oh, sorry, I walked Brian into a bad spot there, so I need to untangle his antenna. There we go. Back in action. Sorry, Brian. As I was saying though, the need for trackers is becoming less and less. Naturally, many years ago, when a lot of African people were tending to livestock and cattle, they would need to track down animals that they've lost from their herds, and that's why in this area there are so many people who have, or the older guys who have the ability to track. But younger generations, where they're doing less and less tracking because there's less needs to look after your own livestock, makes it a kind of dying trade. But the safari industry is keeping a requirement for trackers, and that's why the older professionals, the mentors of Bright and Jeffrey, have been able to pass on these incredible skills, and that's why this legendary job is continuing. Bright and Jeffrey have spotted something that they'd like to show you up ahead here quickly, so we're just gonna have a quick look at what they found, and then we'll probably send you across to James. Oh, this is gonna be cool. I think I know what Jeffrey's on here. So, Mr. Jeffrey, what has happened to this tree?
This is a rubbing post of an elephant.
Okay.
Yeah, an elephant was getting rid of must try to get rid of ticks here.
Okay.
This is also a sign when you are doing following. You can also use this one to follow the trail of an elephant.
And it was rubbing its shoulder up there, high up on the tree.
Yeah.
And if Brian just reverses a little bit, you'll get an idea of how tall this elephant is. The mud starts here and then finishes much further up, further than I can reach. And like Jeffrey says, it's not only about following the footprints, but it's also about following the signs of what these animals have done when you are trailing them. Yep.
And the other thing that is interesting is that even if you don't find the track here, from very far you can see that this is an elephant because it's very high. If it is a warthog, was supposed to be somewhere here. The rabbit.
Exactly, and here maybe buffalo.
If a rhino and buffalo is somewhere here. So even if there is no track here, you can see from very far that this one, like this, is an elephant because it's very high.
Exactly. Well, good stuff. Thanks, Bright. Thanks for sharing that little nugget of wilderness information with us. We're going to race you across to James, though. He's found you a little nest, and we're going to continue searching for anything interesting for you.
There we go, everybody. A fascinating piece of dead wood sitting here in Arathusa. The only heartbeat, I'm afraid, is inside the hole that you're looking at there. It's a hornbill's nest. We watched a hornbill fly across the road carrying something in his or her beak, probably his beak, and past a worm or some such into that hole where I'm sure there is a little nest. Now, there are lots and lots of hole nesting birds around here. There are hornbills, there are kingfishers, there are oxpeckers, there are, what else nests in holes? Lots of different things. And they're all, it's kind of premium space. Barbets and woodpeckers and lilac-breasted rollers. Space is at a premium at this time of the year in these hollow trees. And that's where the hornbills have managed to have their nest. Now, we had a question a little bit earlier about parental care, and often people ask about sort of family values out here, especially with regard to lions and the mammals, and it's because we like to try and identify with the animals and creatures that we see out here. More often than not, the mammal fathers show a disturbing propensity to be fairly useless when it comes to helping raising the kids. But the birds are a very different example. They're amazing. They're often a pair that will raise, often very monogamous pair, that will raise the chicks together. And very seldom is that the case that, you know, the father bird will just disappear. And there's, of course, the very interesting case of the jacana, the African jacana, where the female is actually not very good with the babies. She lays her eggs, she lays lots of different clutches of eggs, and the males then raise the babies. They sit on the eggs, incubate them, and then raise the babies on their own. So that's the story with the birds at the moment. We're driving north in Arathusa. We checked the southern boundary, found absolutely nothing there. We're now heading north, not finding a great deal more, so I think we're going to head across to Djuma again once we reach the northern boundary of Arathusa, and we'll see what we can find there. The heat is continuing to build at a rather alarming rate, so that come 12 o'clock this afternoon, I think it's going to be fairly frightening. I think we're going to be spending a lot of time fighting over cold showers in camp, and maybe finding a swimming pool or two to lie in, like the buffalo around Gallagher Camp. Let's head back to the bushwalk and see what they're up to, and we'll keep you posted.
Well, have no doubt that you enjoyed your little update on the bird's nest with James. It's quite a windy morning, so when walking it's important to keep the wind into consideration. It's kind of swirling at the moment, you'll see, but it is blowing in a generally kind of easterly direction and southerly direction, so kind of in our favor. But I've said before, and I must reiterate, that sometimes an animal smelling you or detecting you before you get to it isn't necessarily a bad thing, because then it's expecting you. And just like us as humans, we often prefer to expect visitors than for them to just arrive unannounced. So by them smelling us before they see us or before we get too close, they're kind of prepared for our arrival. And when an animal's prepared for an arrival, it's less likely to become startled and get a big fright. And that's, of course, not what we want. So not necessarily a bad thing that animals may smell us before we get to them. Big bone here. Not too sure what it is exactly. Probably a buffalo bone. I can see a ball joint here. Possibly that would fit into a hip. So this could be a femur of something. And I'm guessing maybe a buffalo, but can't be certain. Mother Nature hasn't quite finished cleaning up all the little bits and pieces of this bone. This will all be utilized, all these little tiny bits of sinew and ligaments that are left behind for now. It's an indication that this probably isn't hugely old. Good. I wonder, the thing that's always interesting is that there's one big bone over here. And then we look around and there's no bones anywhere in sight. And I guess that's thanks to the hyenas who come in and rip carcasses apart and then carry parts of that carcass away. But just one bone here. I can't see any else in this general area. Often you'd expect to arrive at a buffalo kill or any kind of carcass and see the head and the legs and all the ribs. Oh, here we found another little fragment. Looks like another large bone. Not too sure what it is, but interesting how it is also spread out. And speaking of hyenas, the critters who in all likelihood spread this carcass apart, there's some good news. The den site is active and you're about to go across there.
Well, welcome to the cute segment. This is just magic, isn't it? We can't get enough of these guys, and this little cub, he is just delightful. She's such a fantastic mum. She's so cool with us. She's absolutely relaxed. We're probably about, I'd say about 20 feet or maybe 25 feet away from them. We've parked in the shade because the temperature is rising rapidly. But we just came around the corner, and it's always a little bit of touch and go when you turn up to the hyena den. They could be down inside the den or out lying in her favourite spot. But these guys have just brought us so much joy. I was just talking to Andrew and Philippe, and Andrew said, you know, one of the reasons he does this job is to bring joy to people. And I think this is one of the location that brings a lot of joy to people on Safari Live. This morning I really want to talk about one of our missions, and I think a lot of scientists' missions and conservationists and people that work with animals, is to reinvigorate the sort of healthy love of these animals and what they're all about. And it's a historical thing. You know, back in Victorian times when the naturalists sort of came aboard and started writing books and coming back to their places of origin and wrote these stories about these weird, strange animals with these very, very interesting appendages hanging from them that looked like both female and male. They went back and they sort of came up with this sort of inaccurate conclusion that these were hermaphrodites. There was no female, or the first thing I think they thought was, going back and remembering the story, was that they thought that they were just males, there was no females around, and then they came up with this story that they were hermaphrodites, and the individuals could both sire and conceive offspring. So that was the sort of second thing that came up. And then, you know, the lion represented this sort of massive male-dominated society in the Victorian times, and the male represented this incredible sort of male dominance. And the spotted hyena took a real back seat. Excuse me, please. I'm sorry about that. The hyena took a sort of villain-like sort of representation, I suppose, and it wasn't a very family-orientated model. You know, the lion was this wonderful family with the male was there and protected the females and everything, and these poor hyena picked up this incredibly bad reputation for being a villain skulking around with this being hermaphrodite, and anyway, the story went on, and that has stuck for a very, very long time. Now, luckily in this day and age, we've got so much more research and so many more people, you know, flying the flag for hyena, including all of us here on Safari Live. These incredibly social, interesting creatures right in front of our very eyes with this beautiful little cub suckling from his mum. The tables have turned now, and we can fly the flag for hyena, all the hyena, striped hyena, brown hyena, and particularly the spotted hyena. So the misconceptions are definitely eroding or evaporating, and now we've got this incredible, interesting animal in front of us. And our little friend, our wonderful little friend that has given us so much joy over Big Cat Week. And I just wanted to share sort of some of the background with you about the history and why these guys were historically tainted as these villains. And that sort of, that whole sort of the sexual side of things behind their what people thought, coupled with their scavenging behaviour, gave them a really bad rep. But look at that, will you? Here's a very complex social structure. A super cool little baby who is just an absolute delight to watch. So, Anthony, we've got a question. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Oh, man. Look at that. You are one beautiful mum. And the baby is just loving it. It's got a complete full belly. Anthony, I'm coming to your question, I promise you, mate. I just wanted to watch these beautiful images for a second. It's just the maternal care, isn't it? So cool. Oh, that is just magical, isn't it, folks? To see that relationship, that bond, that beautiful bond between mother and cub. She's let him feed there. He's got a massive fat belly from all her milk, and now she's like licking him clean and looking after him. He'll probably roll down that hill into the hole in a second. You watch. It's happened before. Oops. There we go. He's starting to get his strength. I saw him roll down into the hole the other day. So cool. Anthony, your question. Anthony in Philadelphia, thank you for your patience, mate, and great to have you with us. Your question is how strong is a hyena's bite? Well, in a pounds per square inch level, it's about 1,100. I've seen records, I've seen statistics written of 1,050 to 1,100 pounds per square inch, or PSI. And I've seen that also compared to the same bite as a grizzly bear, and also the same bite as a PSI as a great white shark. So, you know, you're going to get variations on those, and but I think one of the things to take into consideration is that the size, proportionately to a grizzly bear or a great white with these animals. And that comes back down, Andrew. I'm sorry, was it Anthony? I do apologise. I've just gone completely blank. Control, I think I've got that person's name wrong. It is Anthony. Anthony, I do apologise. Let's just watch this little guy. This is the closest we've got this thing amongst the team on Safari Live to see if this little baby's coming down the hill. This little cub, we're wanting to get to the bottom of the hill before Big Cat Week, and it's a little thing that we're striving to do. Come on, little guy. You can do it. Hey, buddy. He's really starting to get his... We're all talking about whether he's going to make it to the bottom of the hill before the end of Big Cat Week. Oh, a little bit scary. Hey, little buddy. How beautiful is he? Or she? I'm not really sure if it's a he or a she. No, that was far enough. I'm going to head back up with Mum. Hang out with Mum. But he's starting to explore his surroundings in his small, knowable world that he's got here, the safety of his mum's eyes. But so, yeah, the bite strength, I think, is something really interesting just to touch on a little bit more, and it comes back down to that, the muscularity, or those massive muscles. If you have a look, I'm not sure how close Andrew can get to the mother's head there in our picture, but okay, guys, I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to quickly crash across to James. He's got some fantastic action going for you there with a great animal as well. These guys aren't going anywhere. We'll see you just now.
Some elephants, everybody, just crossing into Simbambili. So we'll just have a quick look at them. She's not very happy. You can see that from the way she's lifting her head, shielding us from her youngster. Possibly both her youngsters, just a little herd. Oh, here comes another one, across from the right-hand side. Just that one adult cow, and she's not old. She's probably only about 25 or so. There's another one coming now. And they will unquestionably be heading towards some form of water today. So keep your eyes on that Arathusa Dam camera. I think you'll find that there will be elephants coming down during the course of a hot day like today. Unfortunately, we can't go in where they are going, so that might be the last we see of them, I'm afraid. Let's just sneak forward and see if there aren't one or two more. Amazing stuff you're having with the hyena there. So if there aren't any more elephants, we'll send you straight back to the hyenas. Shade will be a premium today, of course. Feeding them. I'm not sure why she was quite so upset with us when she saw us. Maybe she'd had a stressful evening of looking after the kids all on her own. And you'll notice often their tusks are a different length. They're not always sort of equi-beautiful, if you like, and they tend to be left or right tusked, like we're left or right-handed. And that means that they'll use one more than the other, and one will become just slightly different, shorter than the other. Also, of course, you do meet people that have odd-shaped teeth. That's the same with elephants. They won't always have exactly the same size tusks on each side. All right, I think we're wasting valuable hyena time with these chaps in thicker bush. We'll try and find some stuff in some more open areas, some other elephants. Let's hand you back to Hayden and the hyenas, and we'll keep on our merry way. See you just now.
Well, we had our courageous little superstar here, venturing out into the big world, leaving his mum's side and coming down the hill towards us. He's taking the world on, and he's also playing with his mum now, chewing her ears. She's tolerating all this fun play. This is really important, this play, what this little cub's doing. Strengthening bones and strengthening muscles as he develops, or she develops. And mum's also doing this massive bathing exercise, cleaning the baby, the little cub, really nicely. And if there could be another youngster, I think it's her other offspring, down in the den. It's about a 6-month-old individual. Lovely light on the mother there. She sat up and looked at us. It's a gorgeous shot. She's got her eye on something there. I'm just going to take a few photos, folks, if that's okay. It's just such a beautiful light on her. And that beautiful cub, sorry. That little guy is getting an absolute smothering, being lavished with care and attention, and she's an incredible mother. look how rough she is, and he's loving it too. She's really up for play at the moment. She's stood up. The wind is swirling around, I have to say. She's got a little bit of an alert look about her. She's not too concerned, I don't think, or she wouldn't be grooming this cub like she is, but she's still looking around at a few things, and she might have picked something up on the wind. We might drive around the other side and see if we can get another view. Oh, here he's back. He's come back, sorry. And she's come back. Stunning. They're just an incredible at-looking animal. She's definitely picked something up on the nose. You can see her nose working there. She's looking around. She may disappear down into the den with him. It might be just getting too hot, but no, she's going to lie back down there. This is her favourite spot. It's a very, very great privilege to sit. Yeah, she's watching something at the back there. It's a great privilege to sit with these animals and have the time with them. You do feel you really do feel blessed with Mother Nature here. We've got a question from Shell, and is your question, Shell? Firstly, welcome on board. Excuse me, I think I just swallowed a mapani fly. Oh, fantastic, I can feel it wriggling around in my throat. Sorry, Shell. It was a fly. I can feel it going down. Excellent. Haven't had our full breakfast yet anyway. Shell, your question, welcome aboard to Safari Live, and your question is this the same hyena that people refer to as the laughing hyena? It is. The correct name for it is a spotted hyena, but laughing hyena comes from the vocalization that they do make when there's a great excitement, particularly around a kill or a successful acquisition of another animal's kill. Frantic behavior. There's a lot of squabbling, a lot of interaction that goes on in hyenas. They're nowhere near as sort of civilized, I suppose, when it comes to the eating situation like African wild dog are. There's a lot of squabbles and carry on and get as much as you can as quickly as you can. But yes, it's the same animal that they refer to as a laughing hyena, but it comes down to their sort of cackling and laughing sort of vocalization that they make when they're very excited in a social setting or around a kill or around food. But thanks for your question, Shell. Great to have you on board with us, and great to be sitting here with these beautiful creatures. We've got a question from Audrey, who's 5. Great to have you with us, Audrey. You said you think it'd be a great name to call this little hyena Ed. Well, Audrey, there's a funny old thing in the bush here, and we don't name our animals. It's a great name, great idea, that's for sure. We just refer to him as the hyena cub at the moment, but he will maybe get a name somewhere down the line by some of the guides that work here regularly, maybe some of the guides that not of the Safari Live team, but we might, I don't know, we'll see what happens. But thank you so much, Audrey. It's a really great little contribution you've made there. And the funny thing is, Audrey, as he gets older, we might lose track of who he is, and they're really tricky to identify. You can use the spot pattern on them, Audrey, so sometimes you can tell who's who by the spot pattern. But often the hyenas will move across to another area just depending on what happens in there. And, you know, Audrey, there's a great word that you can take away from this today. You know, we've got, I'm not sure where you are at school at the moment, but there's names for animals, grouping names that we call animals, like you say a herd of cows or maybe a flock of chickens. There's a great name for hyena, and it's called a clan. C-L-A-N, Audrey. So hopefully that's a new word you've learnt today. It's called a clan of hyena. Thanks so much for your question, Audrey, and great to have you with us, buddy. I'm watching, 5 years old. I'm so happy for you, bud, and great to have you. Got a lovely question, great question, very interesting one from Raina in Florida. Welcome aboard to you as well. Raina, you want to know how many cubs or how many is in the litter of hyena. It's normally 2, sometimes 3. See what she's doing, see what that cub's doing to the mum now. That neck bite. Watch, I just want to show you, Raina, what's happening right now. It's got the back of the mum's neck there. And doing this twisting head motion. That's a behaviour, that's an instinctive behaviour that's with hyena from birth. And Raina, one of the things, it's a very stressful situation in the hyena den when the cubs are born. So sometimes there's only 1, majority of the time it's about 2, and occasionally there's 3. And what happens is the most dominant hyena cub will start to put that pressure on the other hyena cubs very quickly, to the point where it can sometimes kill it. Sometimes there can be 2 cubs, it's normally only 1 survive, and they will be only hours after birth, like 2 hours maybe, 24 hours after birth, they will be really putting pressure and fighting down in that den. Sometimes if they've moved into another chamber of the den at a young age, the mother can't actually get down there to sort it out, and 1 cub can kill another one. It does happen frequently. It's very intense down there. They've got sharp little milk teeth, and they'll tear into each other, and the most dominant animal will survive. So it sounds pretty gruesome and sounds a little bit intense, but it's the way of the most secure way of the dominant animal, the strongest animal surviving, and it's one of the traits of hyenas in dens. But great question. So normally 2, sometimes 1, occasionally 3. Thank you very much, Raina, for your question in Florida.
Flower, we're going to show you them very shortly, but what's interesting is we found a very similar bug a couple of days ago on a bushwalk. It looked similar but slightly different, and I'll talk you through that, but it was doing the exact same thing, and that was folding up leaf petals to kind of create a tent or a canopy. Take a closer look. This is a morning glory flower, and you can see what I mean. The bugs are currently folding the petals in on themselves, creating this perfect little home, a purple shelter. And I just want to very temporarily open up just to show you the bug, because if any of you can help us identify this, it would be greatly useful. I'm going to let it go now. I think that's long enough for you to take some screenshots. The one that we saw in the bushwalk yesterday wasn't this green color with the beautiful yellow. It was black with little white spots, but exactly the same kind of shaped bug and doing exactly the same thing. I'm going to try and get it back to the state that it was in. I don't want to undo its hard work. There we go. And we just thought we'd show you what's going on at ground level here. This, interestingly enough, is just the first wild morning glory from this batch. There's a few little buds popping up where more flowers will shoot out from. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more flowers on the way on this little shoot. And underneath the ground there's a large bulb like a potato that is fueling this flower's growth. So it doesn't have a regular root system, it's got a very big bulb underneath the ground. And I'm looking forward to finding out what these guys are. They're probably laying their eggs in here, and that's why they're trying to close off the shelter. A few days back we saw these same or similar bugs actually mating whilst on the leaf. These ones haven't been mating yet, but maybe they have already done their mating for the morning. And what's interesting is that they definitely don't appear to be feeding on this flower. It looks kind of cut up, and that's from their feet pulling the flower closed. So as far as we're aware, they're not feeding on it and simply using it as a kind of home or a nest site. Interesting stuff, and I'm sure you guys are excited to be possibly heading back to the hyena den, where you've been having some wonderful visuals of those cubs, or of that main little cub, and we're going to send you back there right now.
Well, she just stood up. You can hear this beautiful sound. She's just making a couple of sounds to her cub. She just stood up. She's just looking around. She's a little bit wary. I don't know what she's picked up on the wind, but mother knows best. And the little one is oblivious to any danger, of course. But she'll give him the nod if he has to go down into the den very, very quickly. He'll scoot down there into safety. She's just gotten up onto higher ground to have a little bit of a look around. Now, it could be something as simple as another individual coming back to the clan, another member of the clan coming back. It could be they could be out somewhere on a carcass. And it's really lovely to see that interaction. But you can see there's a little sense of uncomfortability with him picking up from his mum's body language, or his mum's, yeah, you can pick up on that. He's feeling a little bit uncomfortable. She's giving him signals to just be careful. He's really learning he's picking up off signals off his mum, what he should do. She just gave him some form of body language or signal to get back towards the front of the den there. And then he responded, which is great, which is what survival's all about. Right, he's just, I keep saying he, I do apologise, it could be a she, it's just, I don't really want to say it, so I'm just referring to this little cub as a he at the moment. Very, very difficult to tell at this age. It's difficult to tell at the best of times. Jerry in Perth, Australia, fantastic to have you on board, buddy. Great. Oh, that's so good to hear that you're up and still watching Safari Live. Jerry, your question is a great one, and it's often asked by people, and maybe not necessarily on air, but I do hear people wondering about how the mother survives. Well, she will put the cub down into the den and go off and either hunt or scavenge herself. Other animals don't bring her food back. She has to go off and do that. So she'll do that. She's in perfect condition, as you can see. Very, very healthy. And she will go off and hunt. So it'll be at night, she'll put him down into the den, and he will stay down there until his mother comes back and vocalizes at the front of the den. Sorry, he just fell down the hole then. He'll probably pop his head up in a second. But Jerry, your question basically is she'll go out, hunt for herself, and then come back to him, and he won't come out of that den until she gives the okay for him. But great to have you on board, Jerry, in Perth, Australia. Really wonderful to know that I'm talking to people in Florida, I'm talking to people in the West Coast and East Coast of the United States. We're talking to people in Europe, we're talking to people in South America, Asia, Australia, right around the globe right now, live. You're seeing these pictures live from Africa on Safari Live. Listen to that. You may be able to hear that. Lovely sound, like a mmm. It's very windy, but she may go to the front of the den. She lets out this lovely sound, like a bit like this. Ooh. And it's, sorry, that was my best hyena impression that I can do at the moment. And she will let that vocalization out to call her cub up. And that's that vocalization I was talking about when she'd come back. It's such a fantastic animal. Beautiful big ears, and look at those ears. Those I heard Jamie talking about it to a question the other day about the size of the ears. They are like radar dishes. They pick up sound. If you're sitting at home now and you're listening to Safari Live, I want you to maybe just stand up from your chair, maybe take a couple of steps back wherever you are if you can. Just watch what you're doing, of course, and then just use your ears as they normally are to listen to the commentary and the narration, what we're doing here. And then I want you to cup your hands and put them beside your ears like a hyena's ears, and see if it improves the sound quality for you. I'm gathering it should, and cupping those hands around your ears makes it like a hyena ear. And it's like a dish. It's like a sound dish that captures the sound and channels it down into the ear canal, and lets the brain process that particular sound. So they are like radar dishes. They are fantastic. You can sit back down now, everyone. They're like radar dishes, pick up sound, and they've got a sensational sense of hearing, sense of smell, and sense of sight. Okay, we're going to cross to James. James has got something very special for you. I saw one of these yesterday, but I tell you what, you don't get a chance to see them often on drive, so this is fantastic. We'll see you just now.
Look at that, everybody, a tree monitor. Tree or rock monitor, just so special to see them. They're all around, but we so seldom get them in that kind of light, sitting very happily watching us, almost with the same interest that we're watching him. Isn't it great? The largest lizard that we get here, outside of the crocodile, of course. Look at him. Now, he's very cleverly trying to hide the other side of the... Oh, look at him peeking around the side there. He's giving them the eyeball. That is fantastic. We don't often see them like that. We look at the claws. Brilliant for climbing. And this, of course, is the favorite food of the martial eagle. We saw one the other day being devoured actually by a mvula, a male leopard. He found it very surreptitiously. He just walked in amongst some logs, and one bite and the lizard was dead. But these are phenomenal. They're voracious lizards, these. They're predators. They'll eat pretty much anything that they can overpower. But if you try and catch one, they're incredibly strong. Isn't that lovely? I'm just going to... No, I'm not going to move. He's sticky. He's looking at me. You can't see. I'll try and roll forward a little bit. Jigger doesn't normally roll because she's so arthritic. No. Now, if I start the engine, I think he's going to run. Let's try and... We'll try and move a little bit forward. Move a little bit forward and see if he'll stay there. There he is. He thinks we can't see him, you see, because he's exactly the same colour as the tree. Amazing colours. He's not a particularly big one. I'd say they get probably another third, again, size. And he'll be loving the hot weather. The reptiles, of course, they don't mind the heat at all. They really quite enjoy it. Their bodies are designed for it. They can lose heat when they have to lose heat by going into cool spots in the shade. And when they want to heat up in the sun like this, a day like this is excellent. We get one other kind of monitor here. And the other kind of monitor is called a water monitor, and that's a different sort. They live around water, obviously, but it's very similar kind of look to them. And he does look quite full. He looks like his belly is quite full. I'm not sure that isn't just the angle at which the branch is going up, and perhaps he's just trying to sort of flatten himself against the trunk of the tree so that we don't see him quite so obviously. So they're quite, I mean, the way they defend themselves, he doesn't look particularly terrifying. But what they do is they will bite viciously, and they will also slap with their tails. Their tails can be a very nasty whip. And so they're not venomous at all, but they can give a very nasty bite if you try and catch them. And they're probably just finished breeding now. We'll come into the summertime. They breed in the spring. 20 to 30 eggs they'll lay down in a hole somewhere. And then the rest of the time they'll lurk about the place eating. Nice comment from Rich King. Thank you, Rich. You say their hands look quite humanoid. Yeah, I agree, you know. I mean, fairly long-nailed humans. But yeah, I see what you mean. I think it's probably the fact that upper digit there, the sort of thumb digit, looks almost opposable. It's kind of stuck up on the top side of the limb. And you can see the ear. You can't see it yet, I can see the ear. Every time he moves his head around, yeah, I see that little dark spot on the head there is his ear. I'll try and sneak a little bit forward again. He's convinced, of course, that he's completely invisible to us. Just sneak a little bit forward. Is that right? There we go. Sorry, I dropped the clutch there. And we threw VM clean off the car. There you can see his ear, nose and his eyes. And the merciful breeze that you can see blowing behind us, which is providing the only source of cooth at the moment. And I hope that it blows the whole day. And around about us you can probably hear the wind. You might also be able to hear the cicadas. Quite early for them to be out in the morning, but like I say, because of the heat, they will be out in full force, singing loudly to try and attract mates. And this little monitor will climb into and out of the trees. He'll fossick about in the roots, just looking for any kind of insects. He'll probably eat other lizards if he can find them. If he can find some birds' eggs, he'll probably eat those. It'll raid the odd nest hole. So we had those hornbill nests earlier, and if he was to come across a hornbill nest that he could get into, he'd most certainly go down and try and steal the chicks. Scott was monitoring and is still monitoring a lilac-breasted roller's nest, and before those chicks fledged, you know, there was a big hole opening that easily a monitor this size could get into. So lots to eat out here if you're prepared to eat it. Always particularly tasteful for human beings. Now he's sitting in a tree called no, he's not. He's sitting in a tree called a Peltiforum africanum, or a weeping wattle. And you can see how perfectly his sort of skin is designed to blend into the tree. I wonder how many of these things we drive past, totally unaware that they're lurking, swaying gently in the breeze like this one is. see there, there's no way of seeing him there. And Anna Marie, yes, his claws are like sharp needles. Look at them there. Used for climbing and for catching things and for digging also. Yeah, you don't want to be scratched by those. I think they'll do some serious damage. He's definitely quite aware of the camera though. So every time I move forward, he moves slightly more around and I can see him. I'm looking him straight in the eye. I wonder if he isn't quite, he's either camera shy. Well, I often think to the animals that the camera sitting on the back must look like an eye. And certainly it sticks out further than the rest of the car. But I think maybe animals do perceive it as a bit of an eye. Let me reverse a little bit. See if we can't get a look at the other side of him. How's that going? A little bit further. Okay. Rainer, you ask a fascinating question about the eggs and the breeding, and it actually sort of inspires a whole discussion of things, and it'll link nicely into what Scott's just about to show you. So 20 or 30 eggs, I think you'll find probably less than, I'd say less than 10% will make it to adulthood. Now, Rainer, there are two different kinds of broad classifications of how animals breed. One of them is R selection and one of them is K selection. I forget exactly which one is which, but I think K selectors are those that have very few young and invest heavily in parental care to help them get through, and that would be sort of the human beings, lions, leopards, many of the mammals, even impala would be something like that. And then you get the R selectors, which would be something like the termites Scott's about to show you, which produce millions and millions of babies and take no care over the parental care over the alates and the knowing that many of the reproductors will be eaten. Probably up to 95% of them will be eaten, and 5% are enough to keep the species going. So don't involve themselves in parental care at all. Many of the fish do that, many of the reptiles do that. Right, let's head across to Scott and his termites. The R-selecting termites. We'll carry on here. We're going to head towards quarantine clearings in the water around there and see if we can't find anything there as the heat builds. See you just now.
Welcome back, and you're looking straight down the chimney of a termitarium. Not easy business filming them. They all disappeared as you came across to us, but this is the entrance hole. And what's interesting, there's the big soldier that we were hoping to show you. He's just come out for a surprise visit, and he's a monster. He's got massive teeth, and now that he's moving so quickly, making it a tricky job for Brian to film, but here we go. This is looking much better. He is on a mission, and hopefully he's going to pop out. There we go, into a great spot. Look at him drumming his head. High speed drumming. And he's coming to probably investigate us. We are obviously a risk to this termite mound, even though we aren't doing anything horrible to it. It doesn't like having these big mammals here. They are persecuted by many mammals, and they provide so much protein to the animals of this area that they do need to have necessary defense force, and this is one of those members of their soldier unit. He's a large soldier. He's got those massive chelicerae that it could clamp down onto you. And isn't it fascinating how they drum their heads to communicate with one another? He's just disappeared back into a hole though, sadly. And that's a large soldier. There's also some smaller soldiers lurking about as well. So you get different sized soldiers, and then also lots of different workers. And what's interesting, and the reason why we actually came up to this area, is that if I put my hand over the entrance or exit to this chimney, there's incredibly warm, moist air coming out of here. Now sadly you can't feel that, and there's no way of me showing you that, but it's incredibly warm, probably around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. and the termites need to keep this warm structure or warm temperature within the structure so that the fungus that they farm on their feces, look at this, awesome, so that the fungus that they farm on their feces can be farmed at the right climates. And obviously fungus likes to grow in warm, moist climates and conditions, and that's the climate that they create for their farming. Well, these are some wonderful, wonderful views of this guy. We are so close to him. Wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what he's picking up, whether he's just smelling us and what he's thinking. He's clearly thinking something though, because he's communicating by those head drums that we're seeing. Cool. Well, we're going to leave these termites to their own devices, and we don't want to cause too much disruption to their day, and we're going to send you back to Hayden at the hyena den.
Well, fantastic to see though that monitor lizard with James, because we don't often see those on drives, and when we do, it's great to see. There's such a beautiful, beautiful reptile and a fantastic predator as well. Being in Big Cat Week, it's all about other predators too. And then termites with Scotty, like just so fascinating, termites, and Scotty's knowledge of termites is extraordinary. Speaking of termites, our termite mound that our hyena have their den in the old aardvark hole that they've commandeered. It sort of happened as we predicted, you know. We saw the female with her nose in the air. We saw when she stood up, I was really aware that she'd pick something up on the wind, and they do that lovely head up in the air, getting the wind or getting the scent into their olfactory system in their nose, picking up, processing that, something on the wind. She then gave the cub the signal, and she put the cub in the den, absolutely safe, and she's gone. She's gone off. She may have gone to drink, but she may have also gone to exactly what I think, can't remember. I've had so many fantastic questions. I can't remember who asked the question, but how does she eat, or do animals, do other hyenas bring food back for her? She may have gone off. So she's got something on the nose. She's picked up there's a carcass out there. She may have gone off to eat, or she may have gone off just to get a drink, because it is an absolute scorcher here. So I think we'll leave our hyena den. How fantastic have they been? What extraordinary animals. And I hope that you really enjoyed that as much as we did, because I know everyone in our final control, all the team in there, Jerry, Kirsty, and everyone directing. Jerry's directing today, and Kirsty directed too. It's just so, we just talk about it with so much love and passion, because we're all really, really, really connected with this hyena den. So great stuff, guys. Really lovely encounter. What a sighting that was. And you know what, we posted a little bit on Facebook. I think it was Louise, one of our team, our production team. Louise posted a little clip of Brian and I here the other day, and I think it's had about 210,000 views. So you know what? That to me is like it was Kirsty, actually. I do apologise. It was Kirsty, and hats off to Kirsty for that, because for me, basically what that is flying the flag for hyenas and showing people that, you know, that old Victorian historical sort of thing that they had, that cloud over them about these skulking scavengers that were a bit evil, is starting to erode. And I love that. And I think 210,000 views on Facebook. Kirsty, you're rock and roll, and everyone that's seen that, it's just great stuff. So spread the word, hyenas rock. Right, we're going to move on. Let's cross to see what James is up to. It's a little bit tricky to get out of here, so I don't really want you to see my fumbling as I drive and reverse my team into prickles and thorns. So let's cross to James and see what he's up to. Watch it, guys. Watch your back. Ah!
Right, back with us. We left the water monitor sitting exactly where he was, as the heat is starting to swelter down on us now. You look, I wanted to show you, where can we look? Yeah, look at this tree here, BMB, this bushel. Now you'll notice just the little one here, just this tiny little thing here. A white berry bush. Not particularly fascinating piece of television that, but interesting to just see how the leaves are wilting. There's very little water still in the surface, and as the heat builds you can see the leaves closing, trying to minimize the loss of water through what we call evapotranspiration, and that's when the plant loses water through its leaves, through the little openings that it uses basically to breathe. So that's what's going on with all the trees now. And that's why you might see that they've kind of lost, they don't have the same shininess they do in the morning. That's got to do with the light changing angles, and it's also got to do with the leaves which are open after the night, closing up now during the course of the day. It gets very hot. We also had a lovely view of a fish eagle flying overhead, and because there's this northerly wind blowing, it was just hanging in the sky, flying very, very slowly, and so seldom do we get to view them for any length of time. Normally they're going with the wind or circling, and it's impossible to move the camera so that you can watch this. He actually moves so beautifully across the sky. There's one for people from Europe. Irritating bird. That's the red-backed shrike, and he's just known as the shrike in the UK as far as I'm aware. That's where he's come from. And Anthony, you weren't asking about birds, but I suppose your question could certainly apply to birds. You want to know how often new species are found. In terms of species never seen before, I think we've pretty much covered in terms of the birds and the mammals and the fish and the frogs and the reptiles. But if you were an entomologist and you came into this area and you spent enough time, I'm pretty sure that you'd find any number of insects that, while they've been classified to say order, so we know they're bugs or beetles or grasshoppers or dragonflies, I think, and possibly even to genus, I think you'll find that there are probably families full of insects that we haven't discovered yet and haven't described. And then in terms of the birds, Anthony, we will every so often see birds that come through that are only seen once, or we never see again, or that are first timers and they stay. And that normally happens after some big storms. If a big storm comes in, it sometimes will blow birds in. Or if we have an unusually wet year, you'll get different birds that aren't normally here that will come and live here because the grass gets a bit longer, and so there'll be a food source that isn't normally in the area. So, Anthony, birds, main things to look out for that we haven't seen yet before, but if you're an entomologist or any other kind of invertebrate enthusiast, I think you'd be able to describe species that have never been seen before in this area. Fascinating Twitter handle from somebody called Cook Mud. We were chatting a little bit about birds. Every day I hear a new one that I think that's the best yet. I think Cook Mud, you've taken the cake pretty much today. You want to know if we get emu here? No, we don't. The African equivalent of an emu, of course, is a ostrich. So the ostrich is the largest bird in the world. An emu, if I'm not mistaken, is a South American version of the ostrich. Australian version of the ostrich. Having a very dirty look there from Viam. As I said, South American, I thought that's wrong, isn't it? Anyway, we don't get emus out here, but the ostrich is a very similar kind of bird. Sorry about that, Viam. I don't mean to embarrass you. I know that your chauffeur should be a little bit more clued up than I am. Oh, it's a pretty flower. In the absence of animals, let's look at flowers. And Anthony, I think if you were to come out here and describe things like some of the lichens that we get here and other plant species, I think you'd find some new ones as well that perhaps haven't been discovered. I'm just going to quickly show you this wonderful flower. I can extricate myself from jigger. It's turning into something of a prison car. You get this one, Liam? Right, this is a hibiscus. And I love this little hibiscus because it's got a bit of a naughty name, you see. It's called Hibiscus cannabinus. And as we all know, well, I'm going to bring you a piece of the leaf to show you why it's called that. A beautiful flower. And this is a young leaf. It's normally got another 2 little digits on it. What does that look like, Liam?
No idea.
No idea. I didn't think you would. The leaf actually looks like the leaf of cannabis sativa or marijuana, which does not grow naturally in this area. I suspect if you go outside the gate, there are probably vast plantations of the stuff if you look hard enough. But that's where it gets its name from, Hibiscus cannabinus. Lots of these wildflowers are very sort of, they're very short-lived, you know. They go through the summer, annuals, and then they die off. And they make their seeds and put them in the seed litter, in the seed bank, and then they come out again when it rains again and the seasons are favourable. And sometimes seeds will sit for 3 or 4 seasons before conditions are favourable again. There's another little antelope who thinks he's hiding from us. We will get him. Oh, yes, we will. You stay right where you are. Now, the duiker is actually quite an interesting animal, mainly for the fact that he's sometimes a bit of a carnivore. Now, that's not actually unusual for a lot of the antelopes. Some of them will chew on bones quite often to replace minerals. But those duiker have sometimes been seen eating at birds' nests, little chicks. It's not unusual. I saw a picture yesterday of a warthog that had killed an impala lamb, killed it, and was eating it. And because of the nutritional status of a lot of the animals out here, meat is obviously a very concentrated form of protein. And in times like this, when the grass is not perhaps growing the way it should, because of the lack of rain, you'll find that some of the herbivores will turn to carnivorism for a few, for a little while. Often it's just bone chewing. Sometimes it's carrion eating. Okay, let's head across to Hayden. He's with some teeming herds on the plains, and we'll head towards the waterhole of Gari and see you just now.
So we just left the hyena den and came back around here. The heat of the day is upon us. It's fierce. I can tell you it's probably gone from the 23 that we talked about, which is, I think it was 73 Fahrenheit. It's probably gone up towards the early 30 degrees Celsius. I'll just have to get final control to tell me what that is in Fahrenheit, because I'm absolutely rubbish at those conversions. But we've come around the corner here, and it's just interesting to see that you always know when it's a very hot day. There's incredibly hardy animals, these blue wildebeest, or also known as gnu's in some parts of the world. They're standing in the shade already at this time in the morning. It's only about 5 minutes to 8 here in Africa, in Sabi Sands. When they're in the shade at that time of the morning, you know it's going to be a hot one. So I don't want to go any closer and disturb them. But all of those females that are in there, in that herd, are pregnant. Nearly all of them I can see from here. There's a lot of very round bellies, and they'll be, there's one over here. There's one over here just to the right, Andrew. It's very heavy in calf. You can see there. It's very heavy, and they'll be dropping their calves very soon as well, just like the impala are dropping their lambs now. We're going to have lots of baby wildebeest here. And these wildebeest are extraordinary creatures. They can actually get up after they're born. In about 3 minutes, they can get to their feet and they can run. Now, what an adaptation that is. What a survival skill. How cool is that? They're really, really adapted to just getting on with it, having their calves and getting them up as quickly as they possibly can. And the reason for that is the greatest chance of survival is there. They're not going to fall to predators. That being said, lion, leopard, hyena, and any other predator that may fancy wildebeest still do have a great feast on them. But you know, it is all part of the food chain, it's all part of the ecosystem, it's all part of how it's supposed to happen perfectly. One of the things I always say, folks, you know, conservation is about humans, not animals. Animals look after themselves. They do it perfectly. They've been doing it for millions of years. As soon as you get these stinky little human beings in there, sometimes they're the ones that you have to manage. So it really, conservation is about people management, and you know, the animals, as long as the animals have got the habitat, the animals will come. And it's just great to know that these beautiful, beautiful creatures have a very safe haven here in Sabi Sands. Okay, we're going to cross over to Bushwalk. They've moved out of the shade, not because of us. They've just decided to move on. And we'll link over to see what Scotty's up to, and I'll come back to you to say goodbye just now.
Well, it has come to the end of the safari for the Bushwalk, at least, and the tracking team. We have been unfortunate and not able to locate you guys a leopard or a lion, but we'll definitely be out again this afternoon. Jeffrey, Brights, what do you think we're going to find this afternoon? Maybe a leopard, maybe Karula, or maybe that big male?
Yeah, I believe we are going to find the Karula today.
Our luck will change.
Yes.
Good. Well, you've heard it from the experts. They feel we're going to get lucky this afternoon. Yeah. Bright, Jeffrey, thanks so much. And I'm sure everyone's enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Bye-bye, guys. Yeah. Fambagatle means go well in Shangaan, and that's what Bright just said to you. And we'll see you all on the next safari.
Well, we've come to the water, the last remaining water, or some of the last remaining water, and it is being frequented by some buffalo, by two warthogs which are now herring off across the dam there. And there are some impala, and some nyala, and a zebra or two, some Egyptian geese, some oxpeckers, hippo, buffalo. It's high action here. That's the Djuma pan. Now, this water is basically what we call it's eutrophied, and that is because what does that mean is that there's a massive concentration of nutrients in there. It becomes anaerobic, in other words, there's no oxygen in it, and that's because of the dung that the buffalo and the hippo have put into it. It becomes a kind of festering nutrient pool that algae love, but very few animals will be able to drink out of it fairly soon. It's still a nice pool for them to lie in. But the elephants will specifically choose not to drink out of a pool like this. They might come and swish it about and put mud on themselves, but they won't be drinking too much from it. Buffalo don't really mind. They're more than happy to spend their days chewing the cud and lying in the water. Of course, the bigger you are, the more difficult it is for you to lose heat, but of course the slower you heat up. And buffalo weighs about 800 kilograms, but hippo probably weighs in the region of 2 tons, or 2,000 kilograms. He's just flapping his tail there, you can see every so often. It really is suboptimal habitat for hippo. They'd like to be fully covered with just their noses, eyes and ears sticking out. And I think that no one will be more grateful for rain than this hippo, so that he can perhaps move back to the river, on the Sand River, where there are lots of nice pools for him to lie in. And so, when it gets dry like this, the bulls who are not dominant in the area, they will have to come and live in these suboptimal habitats. And then when the river starts to flow properly again, they'll be able to go down into the Sand River and find a little spot for themselves and remain cool throughout the day. This is not an easy time for them. Right, we're going to sign off from you. Thank you, Viam, for your efforts today. Thank you to the final control of Jerry and Kirsty on Skeleton Crew, and of course to Hayden, and I think he's being filmed by the drone commander, Andrew Francis. Big thanks to Bushwalk, of course, and the trackers. They do a huge amount of work, and we're very grateful for what they do. mostly thanks to all of you for your questions and comments. It really is so wonderful to interact with you all over the world as we drive around in this, what is going to be a blazing day. We'll see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Watch us on TV or on the internet tonight, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Well, folks, it's been an amazing drive this morning. I have to say it's been one of my most enjoyable drives I've done in a long time. The questions were superb, the interaction was fantastic, and that's what Safari Live is all about. It's about showing you this magnificent part of the world and hopefully stimulating to flick that love nature switch in you, your kids, your family, your friends. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Susan from California asked if we continue Safari Live after Big Cat Week. Absolutely, Susan. It continues morning and afternoon every day of the year with an incredible team of people. I go back to the UK, but I come down as much as I possibly can. But you've got an incredible team of people here, dedicated, passionate, tight team that I'm really proud to be a part of. So, yep, every afternoon, Susan from California. Now, we are going to be back out this afternoon again. I'll be in the tent bringing you tidbits of information from the Skull Hut or the lab or whatever you want to call it. The guys will be out on drive. We'll have trackers out. We'll have the drone in the sky with Commander Andrew Francis. It's all going to be fantastic, and I hope you can join us again in the afternoon. This is Africa, folks. See you next time on Safari Live.